This is the Marketing Boss Podcast, where today's top marketing professionals reveal their best tips, tools, and strategies, and we all become better leaders because of it. And here's your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another great episode. That's right, the Marketing Boss Podcast. I'm Parshell Houghton. Thank you so much for being with me today. I'm excited to have Greg Millman, the marketing executive, here on the call with me. And we're going to talk today about marketing versus sales in a B2B world. So you guys definitely want to stick around and listen to this entire episode. It's amazing. So I want to introduce Greg really quickly, give some information about him. So Greg is the CMO, Chief Marketing Officer of Millman Advisors, which is an equity and fixed income investment management firm and wholly owned subsidiary of Raymond James Financial. He directs all the marketing and corporate communication efforts for CTA and its affiliates, with an emphasis on supporting the firm's wirehouse and regional, institutional, and international sales teams. Greg holds a Bachelor of Science degree in finance from Miami University, Ohio, and an MBA in marketing and commercial real estate from the University of Florida. Greg, thanks for being here on the show with me today.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Hey, you guys, definitely stick around for this episode. This is going to be some really great information. I love talking about marketing and sales and how we can connect in a B2B world. So really quick, if you guys have not followed or jumped in yet into the Marketing Boss Club, definitely be sure to do that. That is a private LinkedIn group where marketers like you and I can connect and grow together. And also be sure to check us out on all social media platforms. You can find me, Parshell Houghton, on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So definitely link in. Let's all connect here. And we'll also have Greg's information at the end of the podcast so that you can follow and connect with him as well. So let's jump right into the interview with Greg. Greg, tell us a little bit about your background, how you got started in marketing. I love asking this question just to start off.
Well, it certainly goes back a long way. It's funny is I went to Miami of Ohio with the intention of majoring in marketing. I'd always been interested in what makes a product sell, or how a brand becomes kind of iconic. It was one of those things. You're 18, 19 years old. You have to declare a major, and at that time, and probably still to this day, the finance profession was, I think, a little more just. That's where a lot of the cool kids at school were focusing their efforts, and so the decision that I made was to major in in finance. Having said that, the most of my professional life has been in sales and marketing, and I think it's a calling, just like any other profession. And so I've been involved in one form or another in sales or in marketing for probably the last 20 years. I would never change. It's something that I think you're either a marketer or you're not, and I definitely feel as though that was my calling for years and years. That's
awesome. And I know that you're with a great firm as well. Could you tell us a little bit about the firm, just to give some information and context there?
So Caroline Tower Advisors and its affiliates, we have several different affiliate asset management firms. We created Caroline Tower Advisors about a year and a half ago, as a way to help us go out to market with a singular brand. However, our different investment teams, they all have unique brands, cultures, and we support those and we maintain those. Anyway, we've been, I think, very successful getting the word out about this new brand, and then continuing to market our affiliate firms under their own brands. So, more to be said on that, but I think it's been a wonderful experience. When I joined this firm, I joined what was called Eagle Asset Management, which is still around. It's one of the affiliates of Caroline Tower. but since I joined 4.5 years ago, we've gone from one brand to four. So that's been a challenge, but an exciting challenge.
Interesting. Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that they're lucky to have you for sure. Just in the conversation we had before starting the call, I can just tell that there's a lot of value that you bring to all the companies that you've worked with and partnered with. So I'm definitely looking forward to the conversation further about B2B marketing and sales. I know it's a specific area, right? And a lot of people consider it to be its world in and of itself, but I think in some cases it has similarities, more similarities than differences, really, as it relates to marketing and that world. So tell us a little bit about your thoughts as it relates to the differences. Is B2B really in a world of its own, or does it share a lot of the commonalities, if you will, with B2C?
Yeah, it's a great point. It was something we were talking about a few minutes ago. First and foremost, I think that the marketing profession and what marketers in general try to accomplish, it doesn't really matter whether it's which channel, whether it's B2B, B2C, B2B2C. At the end of the day, I think marketers have an innate understanding of what their businesses are trying to accomplish. So again, to your point, there are more similarities than differences, and I want to make sure I get that across. I also just want to make a shameless plug for the American Marketing Association. It's a organization I've been involved with as a volunteer for a number of years, and I think that people who are listening to this, if they are marketers, if they're interested in the marketing profession, I highly encourage you to get involved with a local marketing organization, whether it's AMA or others. But I think it's helped grow my understanding of the marketing profession and made me a better marketer. Anyway, so I'll get off my soapbox and go back to the question at hand.
No, I love it.
The idea of B2C versus B2B, I think where there is a bifurcation is really understanding who that client is. In the B2C world, I think that's where the major brands, frankly, I bet if you polled, marketing majors in college and said, which way would you want to go? Where's the sexy marketing? It's B2C. You think of these great brands, and they're generally all focused on the consumer. I think what's interesting about B2B is there are different channels that we use. There are different types and methods of reaching out to our clients, and there are benefits in some ways of being in the B2B world. I think it's much more finite. There are only so many people. If you make copy machines, there are only so many people who are in the market to buy these expensive copy machines. If you're selling 401k plans to companies, there's a finite number of companies who are equipped to actually buy one of these or to consider one of these. You kind of, if you compare that to the B2C world, where literally anybody can buy your product, I think it's a big challenge for a B2C marketer. I think that's also where the value of brand becomes so important, and the cost of building a brand is so much more extreme in the consumer world. But again, going back to what's the similarities between these two, I would say that marketers in general, we focus on brand awareness, consideration for our products or services, product differentiation, education of prospects. Those are somewhat universal. I think in B2B, another major difference is the sales cycle is generally longer. I don't think you get many B2B buyers who do something on a whim. It's also harder to track, in my opinion. I think there are more people involved in the sales cycle, so it's not just putting an 800 number up and then counting the number of calls and the number of sales. It's much more nuanced than that. again, there are pros and cons to that. If you're being held to trying to justify a revenue or some kind of ROI, again, in the B2B world, I think there is a bigger challenge to doing that. So those are, I think, some of the major, what I would call the differences between these two. I think certainly the types of channels and the types of tools within the marketer's toolbox, those also are different based upon which organization we work for.
Yeah, I totally agree. And, you make a good point as well. One of the major differences between, let's say, B2C and B2B is the fact that there is a longer sales cycle. And so for us as marketers, I think it points to the fact that there needs to be more content and there needs to be more engagement in that sales cycle. What are your thoughts, or how have you guys approached either possibly speeding up that sales cycle if possible, or keeping and ensuring that there's a higher return, or a higher, I guess you could say, close rate in these longer sales cycles?
Well, so in my organization, we part of our what we call our retail channel is actually we're marketing to financial advisors, and so what we're trying to do to speed up the sales cycle is actually, I would say, we'll shift gears a little bit. It's not so much speeding it up; it's making each message and each touch point more impactful. And so it comes down to content, as you mentioned. It comes down to knowing who our customer is, what they're looking for, and then delivering something that seems to resonate with them. The message should resonate with them. And so, there's the shotgun approach or the rifle approach. We're definitely focusing more on trying to do a rifle shot, trying to find similarities between clients and prospects within our CRM, and then talk to them with the intention that we will at least get a better response. The development of customized content, what we call thought leadership, is also a big initiative for us. And we do believe that what it does is it helps to position us correctly so that when our sales professionals are out talking to clients and prospects, they're better equipped, and we've been able to segment ourselves, to create some differentiation between us and our competitors. But I don't necessarily think that the sales cycle can be accelerated to a great extent. I think it's just that what we can do is provide our sales partners with better opportunities. Right,
absolutely. And what I've heard this quote is that there's no such thing as a bad client. It is a bad prospect. So I think that as well, like when the quality of your marketing, and if that's done well, then you're feeding your sales team, qualified and quality leads that will, help to increase their close rate, because they were pre-qualified really well with the messages that went out to them, beforehand.
I mean, we're certainly doing our best, and that is our intent. I think it's somewhat of it's an evergreen goal. I would be surprised if anyone listening to this or out in the marketing world has cracked that code. They'd be phenomenally wealthy if they had. I think that what we try to do, again, as best we can, is to make each interaction as actionable, as useful as possible. Again, at the end of the day, even though, and this is something interesting that I saw online recently, it was this notion, and I think we forget it, that we think B2B is business to business, so it's company A dealing with company B. At the end of the day, though, it's people talking to people. They have different logos and things, but it's still a personal industry. And I think a lot of B2B marketers and salespeople, I think perhaps they lose sight of that. And So, when you're dealing with a prospect, they could be having a good day or a bad day. They might be having, they may have many other things on their mind. They're potentially, they're holding the cards close to their vest and they're not telling you everything. They're people. And so, there's that nuance. We're not robots. And so each of our interactions are going to be somewhat unique as well.
Yeah, I definitely see what you mean. And, it also brings up the concept or the topic of the marketing team versus the sales team, And,
well, they are different.
Yes, they are definitely different. But, what are your thoughts there? How can, because I believe that in some cases it seems like marketing sales is one and of the same in some cases, but, there are, separations and lines of separation, but are there any tactics or anything that you would recommend for those who, might be having a bit of a struggle between, how to better integrate, how to better unify, I should say, the sales and marketing teams?
Well, that's certainly, that is one of these universal challenges and discussions, I'm sure, is how do you better align sales and marketing? Maybe taking a step back, in the B2C world, and again, not to paint too broad a brush, but if you think about the Coca-Colas of the world and the Procter and Gamble's and these major, just incredibly sophisticated marketing organizations, I think it's fair to say that the marketers rule the roost. Switching gears, if you look at a B2B environment, at least the ones that I've been involved with, sales is the predominant driver of, I think, in many cases, strategy. And the sales folks generally are elevated and put up on a pedestal to a greater extent than marketers. I don't think that's unique to my situation. I think it's just part and parcel of the sales funnel and the sales cycle. And, again, if you're at Coca-Cola and you can drive additional sales of your product through great branding, through, great advertising, which is what they do, then, naturally, you're going to be kind of closer to the revenue than in a B2B where you're helping to tee up the sales folks who are then out there, the last mile closing the sale. So I think part of it is just an innate understanding of the differences in how the sales actually come to fruition. In terms of how do you align the organizations better, there is, I think different organizations align themselves differently. So, for instance, in some organizations, marketing reports into sales, like a chief sales officer. In other cases, sales and marketing, they have their own heads of the departments, and then they report into generally a COO or a CEO. There are probably pros and cons to either of those. I'm sure it's dependent upon culture. It's probably dependent upon product. The sales landscape for that particular product or service. But I think it is an interesting concept, and I think it's shifted from one time to another. Certainly, if you think back in the Mad Men, Don Draper days, the marketers were definitely separate and equal. You've seen shifts within corporations where marketing is now more subsumed by the sales organization. Again, I think the positives there is that you're going to have a natural alignment when everybody works for the same boss. So, other thoughts on alignment is that what we are hearing is CMOs in general, they're actually taking a larger and larger portion of IT spend. And as you do that, I think it's fair to say that just, from a political standpoint, those who have the biggest purse have the most power. And so in certain organizations, they're realizing that digital marketing is a very powerful tool, but it's not an inexpensive tool. And so as these CMOs and heads of marketing, as they manage a greater share of the firm's budget, they naturally become a more important player within the microcosm.
Yeah, I see.
I would also point out. I would also point out that again, it's an inexact science at best, but the ability or the notion that through new tools, marketing, marketing automation and other software and technological advances, if you can get yourself closer to actually being able to prove that ROI. And again, I think salespeople do a great job of being able to prove their ROI, again, because the sales are appended generally to their efforts. If marketing can make a better argument that they're filling up the sales funnel and delivering qualified leads that close, that there is a greater kind of relationship between marketing effort and revenue, then that changes the dynamic.
Absolutely. I mean, if that were the case, man, that would change a lot of industries, and then a lot of how businesses can continue to grow.
And I think it is. Well, I was just going to say, I think that's more unique to the B2B world too.
I think so too. What do you see then for the future state of, where all this is headed? Like, where do you see this, marketing going, let's say, in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think one of the big changes is the advent and the embrace of marketing automation tools. There's some very sophisticated ones out there that layer on to CRMs, and then they also they have code that's embedded on websites, and they become this bridge between kind of our known prospects and then the unknowns who are coming to the website and such, and then being able to track behavior, score leads, and create more robust personas and profiles. That's a big change, and I think what it's going to lead to over time is, again, this ability for a marketing person to actually be able to quantify their efforts. Right now we qualify our efforts and we say, I'm pretty sure we're doing a great job. Look at our brand and, look how many people are talking about us. But it's very hard to turn that into, hey, look how much money I made for the firm. I really think that, marketing automation systems are going to get marketers closer to the pot of gold. That's number one. I think that there will continue to be a greater integration of sales and marketing professionals. Kind of an analogy I was thinking of is, in the military, you got the boots on the ground, the troops who are actually in the trenches. And embedded with them is forward air controllers. These are people who are calling in airstrikes. These are people who are embedded with the folks on the ground so they understand exactly what the situation is in real time. And, if you think about it from a sales standpoint and a marketing standpoint, I personally am trying to make more trips out to the field. And the same thing at I'm sure companies across the country. I think it's an opportunity for us to really see what goes on with no filters, with just kind of an unabridged and unabashed discussion about what works, what doesn't. What are our competitors doing? Those are important conversations, and to have those directly with our sales folks and our prospects there in the room, as opposed to kind of hearing it secondhand, is invaluable. And so I guess I would say that my guess is that you'll continue to see more and more alignment between sales and marketing going forward, and they won't be silos.
Yeah, I see the same. I mean, there's so much technology that's is personalizing those experiences and automating them. So I definitely agree, and I see that as well. So great. This has been really, really great information that you're sharing with the audience here today, myself included. I've been taking notes. But I think, one last question I have for you is, with your experience at CTA, what would you say, just wrapping up here, what would you say has been the number one tactic or strategy that has really made the biggest difference in the success at the firm there?
I'll go back to something I was thinking about a few minutes ago, and it's that, even with all the technology, even with all of the sophistication that again, if you have a big enough checkbook, you can probably acquire, even if you have unlimited resources for headcount. I think one of the most important things that we can do as marketers is provide creativity and provide quality information. And I think that's paramount, and it's something that, I think we do often get kind of tied up with the gee whiz software. And I just spent several minutes talking about the greatness of marketing automation software, so I am a believer in that. But at the end of the day, is you still have to touch people with a message, whether it's email, snail mail, who knows, any other. That's just a delivery vehicle. The important thing is, so what does it say? And I think that is something that I would just impart upon all of us on this discussion is, thinking back to the Don Drapers of the world, it's creativity. It's just a good, solid message. And I think that there's still incredible value to going back to the basics and thinking about who's my audience, what do they care about, and what do I have that will solve a problem that they have. And if we can answer those, and if we can address those day after day after day, I think we'll be more successful, regardless of whether we had all these great new tools or not.
I agree. It makes me think of, I grew up in sports and, played basketball for a number of years. And so one of the things that, the coach or coaches, period, would just really stress was fundamentals. And the nickname we gave for that was textbook. It's like, go textbook, like let's stick to the basics here, because that's what, if that foundation is strong, then everything else, really builds on top of that. But you still have to have those basics there. So that's great advice to myself and for those that are listening.
I love your analogy. I think it's spot on.
Oh, thanks. So, Greg, I'm so appreciative of your time today, being a part of the Marketing Boss podcast. Really quick, I'll let the listeners know where they can reach out to you or, grab you for more information or to connect.
I'd love to connect with folks. LinkedIn is certainly my preferred method. It's linkedin.com/Greg Millman, GregMillman. And I do hope that I'll have an opportunity to connect with some of these folks and potentially meet people in person at whether it's AMA events or conferences or what have you.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, Greg, for your time being on the show today. This is really, really informational and just a great conversation. Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you for your time. I enjoyed it very much.
Absolutely. Well, you guys, that does it for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Until next time, remember, a good boss is a good leader. Go out there, serve your gifts to the world because you are the boss. Thank you guys for being a part.
Thanks so much for listening to the Marketing Boss Podcast with your host, video marketing expert, Parshell Houghton. We'll catch you next time.